Did you know that Christians have a law? Well, they do. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video from Northeast Christian Apologetics. My name is Simon Williams, and today we're going to be talking about the law of Christ. And the verse that we're going to be using in order to jump into this topic is 1 Thessalonians 5:11, which reads, "Therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing." I'm going to be making a video in the future discussing exactly what the law of Christ is. But for the purposes of this Theology Thursday, the law of Christ is basically to love as Christ loved. Since we do have a law that is to love as Christ loved, since we do have that law, that means that it needs to be enforced. But what does it look like to enforce that kind of law? Here lies an important difference between the Roman Catholic churches and the Protestant churches. The former virtually claims authority to enact laws that are binding on the conscience, and the transgression of which carries with it the same penalty that is annexed to any breach of the divine law. The latter disclaim any authority to Christ, who is the true King of the Church. However, they maintain the right to enforce the law of Christ. The Protestant churches claim nothing more than a ministerial or declarative power. They consider the law only binding because it is infused with the authority of Jesus Christ himself. And the only punishments that they provide are those that Jesus Christ sanctioned himself. What punishments have been established by Jesus? Was it imprisonment? Was it being burned at the stake? In Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 through 20, Jesus tells us how we are to enforce his law. The most extreme being in verse 11. We read, "If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a Gentile or a tax collector." It is important to note that Jesus said, "as you would." This is Jesus talking to his disciples prior to their conversion. This is also prior to the revelation they received that said that Gentiles were going to receive salvation along with the Jews. The fact that Gentiles were to inherit salvation along with the Jews was a huge change in the thought process of the early Jewish Christians. Prior to that revelation, Peter tells us how Jews were supposed to treat Gentiles. In Acts 10:28, we see Peter saying to some Gentiles that you are well aware that it is against our law for a Jew to visit or associate with a Gentile. So what are we supposed to do with people that don't follow the law of Christ? We're not supposed to associate with them or visit them. In 1 Thessalonians 5:11, Paul is exhorting the church to abide by the law of Christ by encouraging one another, and to hold each other accountable to this type of love by building each other up. Each member in the body of Christ bears the power and the responsibility to enforce the law of Christ. And the strongest punishment that a Christian can give to a person is to not associate with them. This type of punishment can be seen being administered in 1 Corinthians and also 2 Thessalonians. Sorry, Calvin, but you're not allowed to burn people at the stake, even if that person doesn't believe that Jesus is consubstantial with the Father. So, what do you think? Have you ever had to enforce the law of Christ? Have you ever had to disassociate with somebody because they refuse to love as Christ loved? To what extent are we to enforce this kind of law on each other? I'd love to hear what you have to say on the matter. Please write them in the comments below. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. And don't forget to visit us at www.nechristianapologetics.com. Thank you and God bless.